Opinion, the Branding Business Forum, where leaders share their views, insights, and experiences from the world of B2B branding. And now, here's your host.
Welcome to Expert Opinion. I'm Ryan Rieches, and today's show takes a look into the rebranding of a global organization, the Center for Creative Leadership. Please welcome Portia Mount, Senior Vice President of Global Marketing for CCL. In her role, Portia oversees the company's global branding and marketing strategy. Prior to joining CCL, Portia held senior management positions in prominent PR firms serving global 500 companies. I had the pleasure of working with Portia on the rebranding of CCL. So let's dig into the process of creating their new brand, and with the thought that insights that could help others who also want to create a global brand. Portia, welcome to Expert Opinion.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be with you.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can share with our listeners a little background on CCL.
Sure. Well, we are a global organization, and our specialty is leadership, training, education, and research. We're in the Fortune Financial Times top 5. We've been there for the last 10 years, and annually we train about 30,000 leaders around the world and work with more than 3,000 organizations of all different types, from government agencies to non-governmental organizations to Fortune 500 companies. So it really runs the gamut of the kinds of organizations we work with, but our goal is pretty singular, which is to help make better leaders around the world and drive impact within those organizations.
I know the organization's been around a while, and you've continued to evolve and continue to be relevant, but why did you decide it was the right time to evolve your brand?
That's a great question, Ryan. CCL's been around for 44 years, and when our founder, H. Smith Richardson, founded us in the 70s, we started out with research and training of individual leaders. And so we are best known probably around the world for the training programs we do for individuals. However, what we've seen over the last, in particular, 10 to 15 years is a real shift in the thinking about what it takes to become an effective leader. And in particular, the need to not just train individuals, but also to really focus on the overall organization. One of the things that our research showed, that our clients told us, was that you couldn't just train a leader and then put them back into the same culture in which they worked. That you actually had to take a look at the entire organization, get to look at the strategy of that organization, the culture in which individuals work, and the work of making sure that all of those things are aligned to optimize the performance of the organization. So we were not known for doing that work, even though we've been doing it for the last 10 years. And what became very clear, particularly as the many consulting firms started also advising on leadership and leadership practices, is we realized that we were not known for this work, and that it was going to be really important to change our reputation in the market. And that really started the whole internal conversation about, what is CCL's brand? What is the reputation that we want to earn as a global organization? And that's what started that process.
Okay, perfect. We were brought in to assist you through a partner firm, the Brand Consultancy. And right. I know that they worked with you closely on developing a number of different research studies out in the marketplace.
That's right.
Maybe you could share a little bit about those findings in consideration with the competition that you were mentioning and the changing marketplace as well.
Sure. So that's correct. We did hire the Brand Consultancy, and of course, very also fortunate to work with the Branding Business. And really, this was very much a research-driven, a data-driven process. So we knew that our reputation needed to change in the market. We knew that we wanted to understand and clarify what our ideal brand was, but we didn't know what that should be. We had, of course, internally in the organization, a lot of opinions, but we needed to consolidate that around some clear, concrete data from clients. And so we went through a process, about a year-long process, put together an internal global steering team, of which I led, in which we had board members as select board members as sponsors, along with our certainly our CEO, John Ryan. And we went out to the marketplace and asked clients, current clients, past clients, and of course individuals who and companies who had never worked with us to help us understand what our ideal brand was. And we learned a lot from that process. We asked clients all around the world too, so it was a very comprehensive. So it was both a qualitative and a quantitative approach that we took. And so we learned a few things. So one is we learned, or it was certainly reinforced for us, that we were much better known in the United States than we were in the rest of the world. We have 12 campuses around the world. We've got regional headquarters in Singapore and Brussels, in addition to our Greensboro, North Carolina headquarters. But most people knew us as a very U.S.-centric organization. The other thing that we learned very clearly, also, was that we were typically known for doing one thing, and that one thing being, depending on the client, was either coaching or maybe our research or maybe our individual leadership programs. What we were not known for and what we wanted to be known for were the organizational strategies, the organizational engagements and expertise that we have. We also learned, Ryan, that we had tremendous, as much as we were not known in many markets, we had tremendous permission from our clients to move into this broader view of leadership that we have now. So that was really exciting to think about. Not only, even though we aspired to have be known much more broadly as what we call leadership solutions, which is the ability to provide leadership at all levels of from societal impact all the way down to the individual. And it was exciting to learn that we had a lot of permission in the market to do that if we could structure our portfolio the right way and we could develop our brand the right way.
So these insights really confirmed the path that you were already on, in the sense of going beyond just training an individual leader, but rather impacting an organization, right? And
that's right.
And then so your brand promise about results that matter, and really impacting the business and having a return to the business, really was a new opportunity, right, for you to build upon the path you were already on.
It was a tremendous opportunity, and what I would say is one of the things that it really helped do is to, one, clarify for us how to position CCL, because, again, as I said earlier, there were a lot of opinions internally about how, where we should focus our attention, but it became very clear that one of the sort of in the quantitative research that came out, one of the biggest ahas for us was that to a person, wherever, regardless of where the client we interviewed and where they were in the world, was this whole idea of sustainable impact came out really, really clear. And I should say, in our industry, measurement is the holy grail. No one has quite completely figured out how to ultimately measure the impact, the role of leadership. However, there's a lot of research, so we certainly have a lot at CCL, and we've begun to quantify how you can measure impact at various levels of an engagement. And so this idea of sustainable impact was something that clients said they wanted really deeply. But we came up with what clarified for us in our brand identity were sort of three major attributes. So one is what we call accelerating leadership, and the two attributes that defined accelerating leadership were being proven and cutting edge, and that really spoke to both the research that CCL did as well as the the constant exploration of pushing the field of leadership development to understand, whether it's in the neuroscience, in evaluation, really trying to understand how do we continue to refine this thing called leadership. The second attribute we defined from the research was defined as universal perspective, and with two defining attributes that we called worldview and focused on you. And that really spoke to both CCL's vast experience, 44 years, gathered from all over the world, and yet, even though we have this very broad experience, we also very uniquely tailor any engagement we have either to the organization, to the individual. So this idea of highly customized work that we're able to do based on our experience. And then finally, results that matter, which we defined as both being a better business and a better world. One of the big interesting internal debates that came from CCL was the fact that we both were known for our corporate work, but we're also known for some really incredible societal impact work we do. A lot of people don't know that we do work in conflict zones around the world. We work with youth in orphanages in Uganda. We work with women in India who are engaged in micro enterprise businesses. So this idea of also helping both corporations who can continue to contribute to the world through their work, but also working with all these incredible non-governmental organizations really define this idea of better business and better world. So all of that really crystallized this sort of our overall identity of results that matter, sustained impact for you, your business, and the world. And that was really exciting when we finally agreed on it and consolidated it. It just became a real clarion call for the organization and spurred a lot of additional interesting changes internally.
Yeah, it's a great feeling, isn't it, to land on something that feels natural and built from within the organization, built upon your culture, and the most important part, also something that is very relevant to your target audience, isn't it? That's
exactly right, Ryan. And being able to have something that resonates with the client, but also deeply resonates with employees, because after all, at the end of the day, our employees, our 3,000 colleagues around the world, 600 full-time, are the ambassadors for our brand. And so if they don't believe it, we know our clients won't experience it. And so that was really, really important part of that process of coming to this new brand identity.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the brand identity. I appreciate that when we were in that process, you definitely involved your global organization and had representation from each of the regions because it needed to work globally, obviously. It's not, as you were moving beyond, just a U.S.-centric. So maybe we can talk a little bit about your perspective of, well, the process of evolving the identity, number one, because it was kind of sacred for many years, wasn't it? Many organizations evaluate this and are challenged with, how do I change or how do I evolve what could be perceived to be a sacred identity because the founder built it or for whatever reason. But organizations evolve and they need to stay current. So maybe you can just chat a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think one of the really important lessons from this whole experience, which really is, started 2 years ago and is ongoing, is first and foremost, we had to build the case for change internally. So, and it's so funny because most people, and Ryan, I know you encounter this in your work all the time, think of the brand as the logo. They don't think about it as the promise or the reputation that you want to earn in the market. So we had to do some very sort of basic education about when we talk about the CCL brand or the identity, or what is it we're trying to communicate? What's the reputation we wanted to earn? So, of course, we did lots of town hall meetings. We had task force meetings. We did small group meetings. And I can tell you, for the better part of a year, every meeting someone would ask, when are you going to change the logo? And we would always say, we're not going to talk about that right now because we want to focus on the reputation. And I feel that that was really important because by the time we got to the visual identity, the case for change had been made. People had understood the research and what the market was telling us, and we had done a lot of socialization of the new identity internally, both at the business unit level and at the team level, so that people had internalized it. And so by the time we got to talking about the visual identity, it was natural. Now, I should say that didn't make it easy, but it made it easier because people understood, okay, we're trying to earn a certain reputation in the market. We as an organization need to align and be able to deliver on that promise every single day, regardless of whether I sit in finance or I'm in facilities or I'm training. I'm standing up and training, a classroom of leaders from around the world. I personally have a responsibility for delivering on the promise. So that was really important. Then when we moved to the visual identity, we actually set up an entirely new global group to help us. That's, of course, where we brought in the branding business to help us think about, now that we have this identity and that's been clarified, the way we are visually presenting ourselves to the market doesn't match who we are or who we aspire to be. And I think there was broad-based agreement on what that needed to change. I will say, though, and you've alluded to this, we had maybe unusually the same logo for essentially our entire existence. So changing the CCL logo was a big deal.
And there's usually some emotions attached to that as well, right?
There were lots of emotions attached to it, and I have to say, as much as I heard from colleagues around the world, I think our CEO John Ryan bore the brunt of that, from emails to phone calls to people stopping him in the hall to ask him what was going to happen with the logo. There were some people. What was interesting, though, was that average tenure of a CCL employee is around 10 or 12 years. And so, but over the last few years, particularly in our international offices, have hired a lot of new colleagues. And so employees in our international offices felt less attachment to the old logo. But in some of our U.S. offices, there was much more attachment because you had staff who had been at CCL for a long time. And so it was, we knew going into it, it was going to be sort of like wading into fire, and you just had to kind of get on to the other end of it. And indeed, as thorough as our process was, we still had people. When we revealed the logo, we had some people say, "Oh, this is the best thing we've ever seen. This is amazing." And we had others who said, "Oh, we hate it." But I have to say now, and because that works, we debuted the logo in, oh my goodness, March, and so we're now sitting here in the fall. And universally, I can't tell you how many people stop me in the hall. I get emails all the time of, "We love it." And I say this all the time, identities are like public art. It takes people a little bit of time to get used to it, to understand what it means and to grow into it. And I think that's very much what happened at CCL. The process was not without some bumps, I will say, and I joke that I probably do not have another visual identity in me. I don't know if I could do it again, but I am really pleased. First of all, I think the branding business, the designers, Michael Duhois, the team was so incredible and this is what I think is really important from, if you're evaluating who to work with, it's really important to work with a consultancy, with a design partner who understands who you're about and doesn't just understand the business, but also understands the people and the dynamics of the organization. And I think, Ryan, you and your team did that so well for us because we had a lot of, frankly, politics tied up in much more than I think, myself and certainly, my CEO anticipated. And to be able to flex to, one, give us what we need, right? Give us what we need, and also while being responsive to the concerns and dynamics of the organization is art and science. And I think when you find the right partner to do that, regardless of where you think you're going to end up with success on the end, even if the process is challenging, because it is not easy, even in the best of circumstances, to come up with a new visual identity. The other thing that I love about our identity is it works. It's not just the mark itself, but it's the overall identity, which just really speaks. It really visually brings our brand to life, and it's beautiful. It's it's completely executable, which I think is really important, and it's very global and fresh, and we get lots and lots of compliments about it all the time. So, I couldn't be happier from a process standpoint of where we ended up.
Well, it's very kind of you. Appreciate that. Well, you spoke of consistency, and that is one of the challenges for any organization. Now that you have it out there is to, make sure people use it consistently. And being a global organization, maybe you could chat just briefly about how you rolled out the brand, both the voice of the brand, but also the visual components of the brand. And I think, unfortunately, because of time, this will probably be our last question. So if we could just share that'd be beautiful.
Sure. I think that the training, again, one of the things that I can't emphasize enough is how important it is to explain to people, first of all, why the consistency is important. So I think as marketers sometimes or, branding experts, we know why and we assume everybody else understands why. But, we spent a lot of time, we actually did workshops. We probably did 10 or 12 voice of the brand workshops where we gave people very specific materials that said, here's how you talk about CCL. We then did the face of the brand workshops where we shared with people what the toolkit was and colloquiums as well. And everything from the signature to the PowerPoints to letterhead, we did not make any assumptions about what people knew or didn't know. And here's really the key thing, which can be difficult in some cultures, is in our CCL culture, which again is sort of quasi-academic. We have a culture of not really telling people what to do, and kind of anything goes from certainly from a visual identity standpoint. And we changed that completely, which was a little bit of a shock to the system. And we said, no, you must put your signature must look this way. You must use these templates. But all along the way, we said not just because we're trying to be the brand police, but we are trying to present a certain image to the market. We're trying to earn a reputation. And when we framed it that way, we got so much more compliance. And the other thing I'll say is that we have a terrific group of brand ambassadors who have been really instrumental in fanning out to their respective business units and making sure that the leaders of their business units have all the tools, that they're communicating the importance of the consistency as well. Every now and then we see slipping, but what's great is I don't have to pick up the phone and call usually or make the correction, or someone on the marketing team. It's usually another colleague saying, hey, why aren't you using the signature? Or why did you just make this presentation and you've created your own template and you're not using the branded template? So we're seeing the organization, if you will, kind of monitor itself for compliance around the brand identity. And that's, to me, that says that we did our homework in building the case for change way up front, helping people understand the reputation we were trying to earn, and then ultimately, use the tools in order for us to be able to really present a polished and professional organization and consistent organization around the world. So that's really exciting.
Well, Portia, I'd like to compliment you on your ability to organize this throughout a global organization, and I'd like to cite you as the best example of doing it right. That consistency, that continuity certainly equals clarity and allows you to earn the reputation that you want to earn. So hats off to you.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been a lot of fun. I've really had the time of my life. It's been really fun.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being a guest on Expert Opinion. Any final thoughts or insights to share with the listeners?
I think thanks for having me. And again, I say choosing the right partner is key. And the other thing I would want to communicate is the process is as important as the outcome when you're trying to change your reputation in the market. So pay attention to the process and take your time through it, because at the end, when you can align your organization behind your new identity, it will pay you in dividends.
Well, I couldn't agree more. The process is critical, and once again, hats off to you for getting the entire executive team involved in this, because, as you know, branding is not a marketing function alone. It's really more of a corporate initiative. So
that is exactly right, and a lot of people don't realize that when they go into it, that you've got to get more than the marketers involved. You need your CFO, you need your CEO, you need your CFO, and you need your executive team, and you certainly need champions on your board as well.
Well, you've been very informative. Appreciate it greatly. If our listeners have any questions of you, how could they best reach you?
They can reach me via email at mountp@ccl.org. That's always a great way to reach me, and certainly you can find me on Twitter as well at BossMomOnline.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, Portia. That concludes our show for today. This is Ryan Rieches, and you've been listening to another edition of Expert Opinion, a branding business forum where thought leaders share their point of view. If you'd like to listen to past shows or read our blog series, visit BrandingBusiness.com.